Looking like heat lived in pleasure. Came here today opening the car door for her and sitting next to her with your arm wrapped around her shoulder. But if I were to move from observation to a state of investigation and follow y'all home after worship, would I come to discover that you share the same address but sleep in a different bed, in a different bedroom? From observation, Pastor Johnson, I've come to discover in our churches that we got a whole lot of babies' moms, but not a whole lot of wives. Y'all not talking to me, so I'm going to have to hang out here for a minute. I think I've come to discover why we got more babies' mamas than wives in our communities and congregations. Because too many young ladies have failed to move from observation to a state of investigation. Can I talk about it? Because from observation, he was tall, dark, and handsome. From observation, he had it going on. He was GQ, fly, and fine. From observation, he was bouncing on 24s or 26s with TVs in every headrest. From observation, he had it going on. He had it all together. But if you had moved from observation to a state of investigation, you might have come to discover that the escalator was in his grandmama's name, because his credit had gone from A+ to C you later. You might have come to discover that he had bought a car but was renting an apartment. Y'all will catch that tomorrow. You might come to discover that he had two other babies' mamas that he'd never done nothing for. And now here he is, you running his Holman street Sunday after Sunday asking for a benevolent offering. If you had moved from observation to a state of investigation, you might not be in the place where you are now. From observation, we look like God's people. We come into God's house with our church clothes on Sunday after Sunday, speaking our religious rhetoric and our Jesus jargon. But if we were to move from observation to a state of investigation, come to discover that too many of us are saints on Sundays but ain't Monday through Saturday. Come to discover that too many of us can line a hymn but can't live the lyrics of that hymn. Too many of us are caught up in mess and malfeasance instead of ministering to the misery of the masses with the mercy of the master. When I move from observation to a state of investigation, I come to discover that we've got promise of potential, but many of us lack performance and production. We've got style, but we've got no substance. We paint a picture of prosperity, but there's no real wealth within us. In the text, Jesus moves from observation to a state of investigation, which then led him to a point of frustration. For here in the text, the Bible says in verse number 14, and Jesus answered and said unto him, no man eat the fruit of thee hereafter forever. Here it is. Jesus was on a 2-mile journey, 55-minute walk from Bethany on his way to Jerusalem to turn the temple out. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus had provided any sustenance or breakfast for him. Due to observation of vegetation, Jesus detours from his destination to avoid starvation. His observation then leads him to investigation. Investigation leads him to understand that the tree that was bare-eaten was actually barren. He's now at a point of frustration, arising from unfulfilled needs. Jesus needed substance. Jesus needed to eat, but the tree had tricked him. The tree had lied to him. The tree had called Jesus to detour from his destination. And so Jesus now finds himself at a point of frustration, arising from unfulfilled needs. Holman Street, my question to you today is, how many times does God find himself frustrated with you and I? Because we provide him with unfulfilled needs. When things are well, praise is what I do. Even when I'm going through. And when God sends us to a place and point of going through, we can't find you. What is it that we do that causes God to become frustrated with us? Is God frustrated with the fact, Pastor Johnson, that too many of our churches have become cruise ships instead of battleships? The church, the black church, was the place of the civil rights march. The place where our people were empowered and inspired to go back into the streets and to fight the good fight. But now we've made it and we've arrived because we got 2 cars garage, a foreign car in the driveway, and a positive balance in our checkbooks. Is God frustrated with the fact that too many of our churches are Christian country clubs, where if you don't look like us and praise like us and live like us and drive like us and talk like us and get with Saul, regretting that he ever blessed him and elevated him. What is it that God is frustrated with us about? Is he frustrated with the fact that this past Christmas you spent more money buying your kids' toys than you did investing in the 529 plan to finance their educational future? What is it that God is frustrated with us about? Is he frustrated with the fact that we continue to chant, yes we can, a campaign to change, but yet last election there were 8 million blacks who were yet unregistered to vote? What is it God is frustrated with us about? I believe I'm looking at some frustrated folk in the house today. You're frustrated with being broke. Again, you said 2010 was your year of breakthrough, your year of increase. But why are you frustrated? You haven't signed up for the Dave Ramsey course, but yet you're frustrated. You haven't cut up your credit cards, but yet you're frustrated. What is it that you might need to break your level of frustration? What is it in us that we might need to break? Holman Street, this is it. This is the quick and skinny. I'm going to my seat in a second. But here's the crux of the message. In your life, when you move from observation to investigation, finding yourself in a state of frustration, that means it's time to break some stuff that hasn't been broken in your life. Y'all missed it. Let me get it again. Right. When you look back over your life and you move from observation, and your observation leads you to a state of investigation, and your investigation leads you to a point of frustration, that means it's time to mess with some stuff that hasn't already been messed up in your life. I'm talking to a young lady here today that's frustrated with the fact that every man she attracts is a dove. Come on. Well, John Maxwell talks about the law of attraction. And could it be that your frustration might not be with me, and you ought to quit male bashing and calling all black men dogs and saying ain't no good black man out here? The reality of the matter is, the fact is, you could really be a thugette, and that's why you're attracting so many thugs. What is it that you need to break within yourself to get out of life what you want? When you move from observation to investigation, and your investigation leads you to a point of frustration, it's time to break what hasn't been broken in your life. Y'all don't believe me? Because it's here right in the text. Here Jesus moves from observation to investigation. Investigation leads him to a point of frustration. Here frustration then causes him to engage in a point of eradication. For the text tells us in verse number 14 that Jesus cursed the tree. But if you continue reading down to verse number 20 and 21, you come to discover that this same tree had dried up from the roots and then withered away. For the text says, as in the morning, as they passed by, they saw the fig tree dried up from the roots. And Peter called him to remember and said unto him, Master, behold, the fig tree which thou cursest is withered away. It's interesting here, the juxtaposition between verse number 14 and verses 20 and 21. For in verse 14, if you pay attention to the etymology of the text, to the verbiage of the text, it simply says in verse 14 that Jesus cursed the tree, that it would no longer ever bear fruit. It didn't say that Jesus cursed the ground. No. Y'all missed it. In verse number 14, Jesus cursed the tree. He simply said it could no longer bear fruit. But when we get to verse 20 and 21, we see that that tree dries up from the roots and withers away. Y'all still not getting it. He cursed it in 14. You can't bear no fruit. But in 20 and 21, it dried up from the roots, withered away, and died. Y'all still not getting it. Verse 14, he simply said, fruit, no more. But in 20 and 21, the tree died, dried up from the roots, and withered away. Some of y'all still not getting it. Maybe it's because I left out a hermeneutical tidbit that would help me hermeneutically close this message out. If you join me back in verse number 13, I think you'll see what I'm talking about. For the text says, and seeing the fig tree afar off having leaves, he came, and happily he might find anything thereon. And when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for the time of figs was not yet. Here in the text, it was around March or April. But fig season didn't come until until May or June. He cursed it in 14. The tree had been living without bearing any fruit up until this point. Jesus approaches it, came to get what he wanted from it. The tree was perpetrated, putting up a front and a facade. Did not give Jesus what he wanted and what he needed. It showed promise and potential, but no performance, nor production. And so Jesus curses it in 14. It dies in 20 and 21. Y'all want to know why the tree had to die? Simply because it was acting outside of its season. I wonder who I'm talking to in Holman today. Who parts of your life and parts of your future and parts of your destiny have died, had dried from the roots and withered away, simply because you acted outside of your season. What young person am I talking to today? And your future, you literally killed it because you wanted to be grown before it was time. Whose destiny has been destroyed simply because you were acting outside of your season. Who is it that wanted to be big but little had you in a headlock? And now you detoured your destiny because you were acting outside of your season. You were acting and carrying the swag as if you were CEO and president, and you just got the job in the mailroom. What have you done to your destiny? What have you done to your future by acting outside of your season? Can I talk to you from a financial perspective? Who is it that has killed wealth in their family because you acted outside of your season? You went and got a loan that you did not qualify for. Filled out documentation, a low doc or no doc loan, lying about your income and your income streams. Buying a property that was way overvalued. And now you find yourself in foreclosure. Well, if you had just waited on the promise and the provision of God, you could have got that same property today, a few years later, for pennies on the dollar. Who is it? Y'all missed all of that. Who has killed your future? Who has blocked the blessing? Who has minimized a miracle in your life? Simply because, like this tree, you wanted to act outside of your season. When every day is living beyond your means, acting outside of your season. In the text, he didn't curse the tree, curse the ground that was provided with sustenance and minerals and nutrients for life. He didn't curse the ground, he cursed the tree. What leader in Holman Street am I talking to whose ministry has borne no fruit since you've been in leadership? Who is it that needs to give Pastor Johnson your letter of resignation at the end of worship on today? Because since you've been in leadership, that ministry has dried up from the roots and withered away. All because you wanted to be the pastor. Can I suggest to you today that God didn't curse the ground, but he might curse the tree. He ain't going to curse Holman Street, but he might curse that leader that's planted as that tree in that ministry. I'm over my time. As I go to my seat on the street, my question to you, my challenge to you, my charge to you today, what is it that you're going to leave from this place and bring? When you get to the crib this afternoon, what are you going to mess with that hasn't already been messed with or messed up? What you going to bring? What you going to destroy? Y'all quiet, let me come this way. Who you going to bring? Young lady who put Jesus out and brought Junebug in.